everyone, it's Daz, and this week's discussion is about a few things. One of them is going to be natural disasters and our current climate, as well as land grabs and displacement of different populations. I watched the Hurricane Katrina documentary by National Geographic on Disney and Hulu, and it was really sad. I knew about Katrina when it happened. I was like 10, almost 11 years old. And I remember it being really bad. I didn't understand the severity of it. I remember it took them a while to get to the people, but the inhumanity and the way they criminalized a lot of the people that were trapped in the Superdome, and they knew about the levees being compromised, and the fact that there wasn't an immediate response really made former President Bush look very bad. It made the former head of FEMA look really bad. It made that whole federal aid look terrible. And it did seem that class and race intersectionally had something to do with it, because New Orleans had a predominantly Black American population, but there were still a lot of working class and poor whites and Hispanics that were also caught in these terrible conditions as well. And we see this even like with the Texas floods that have happened recently. This has been a terrible year for weather all around. And excuses that they cut all this funding with Doge. And so a lot of people aren't being warned by like the National Weather Service or the NOAA about upcoming hurricanes, floods, thunderstorms, and a lot of these states don't have the resources to give the citizens help afterwards. There is a crack in our emergency management system, whether we're talking federally or even on a state level in many states, and it's terrible that people can live in an area for so long. They can have a home passed down generations, and then one disaster like that could displace them from being able to return. I was talking to my brother, and they say that Black Rock is going to continue to snap up more and more homes. What to me is criminal is the fact that the new model anymore for most people that are starting a family, as far as home ownership goes, which they're making that further and further out of reach, is to rent a home. So homes that could go to people who may be able to save the cash are now being rented out. And it's creating this perpetual society of renters. And when these disasters happen, there's often land grabs. That's something that people were concerned about last year when there was the Hurricane Helene in Appalachia, and some were saying that there was going to be land grabs from that. Think if you and your family had a home from generations, because home ownership is so hard in today's world. Baby boomers are the wealthiest generation that there's been, and I don't even know if there's going to be Social Security left for Gen Xers. I know as millennials, we're just prepared to work until we die. And I know Gen Z, they're talking about them struggling the most. It's like a huge gap, because you either have Gen Z people that are millionaires in their 20s, or you have those who are struggling. I know the average age of home ownership has moved up to 38 years old, which isn't a surprise. I'm 30, and I do not see myself purchasing a home anytime soon. It is a huge investment. The land grabs is what bothers me, because historically, like, look at Hawaii with those fires not too long ago, and native Hawaiians are being displaced off their land because what do they do with the land? You have people come in with buku bucks, these big corporations like Black Rock, they buy up the land, they turn it into tourist attractions. For those of you who've seen the Yellowstone series or seen 1923, which is like a prequel that was later made, there's a character on there named Whitfield. He's a wealthy businessman, and the way he thinks and the way he wanted to take the Dutton family's land, that's just like a classic playbook that happens a lot of time with these disasters, unfortunately. And it makes me wonder sometimes, like with Katrina, all the factors, somebody says that it wasn't just a disaster, it was a genocide and a land grab. And how many other of the disasters, whether you believe these are naturally occurring, there could be some interference with HARP, are land grabs and genocides of different groups of people. I know people had conspiracy theories about that last year when there was these flooding from Hurricane Helene, because a lot of the people that were impacted would have voted more right-leaning. Another thing I want to talk about that I forgot to mention in the intro is this whole militarization of the police force. So right now, there's this narrative that's being pushed by the current administration that Washington, D.C. is dangerous and all these major cities are dangerous and that crime is at all-time high. And then on the left, they're saying that crime is down. What I'm seeing is that we're having softcore martial law kicked into place here because D.C. is militarized. And they're talking about doing the same thing in Chicago and Oakland and Los Angeles and probably other major cities. And so if we're going to have the National Guard and soldiers on our American streets to watch civilians, what are they really preparing for? What is really at play here? What are they really expecting? I know some people are worried about like a civil war. And I mean, that is a possibility, but I think more than a civil war, I feel like they're trying to keep people in. And on one side, they're deporting people out of the country, but for the citizens, I feel like they're trying to almost trap us within the cities. Even all of these airline crashes and plane crashes, like none of it is a mistake. It seems like a lot of chaos is being manufactured to bring order out of it, and I really see that. Another thing I wanted to mention with weather is there's just so much flooding. Like there was the flooding in Texas, there's flooding in Wisconsin, flooding in Tennessee, just complete homes, roadways washed away. It seems like I mentioned back in March when that Pi Day solar eclipse happened, that things have really shifted. And in India, they are having record time heat that is the equivalent of 140 degrees Fahrenheit or 60 degrees Celsius. They have cars melting, tires on bicycles melting. It's getting so hot that people aren't going to be able to survive it. And I'm hearing rumors that it's going to cause a lot of them to mass migrate out of the land. Similar things are happening in other countries like Pakistan, but India in particular has been hit with like terrible heat waves lately. And with all of these weather disasters, it pushes people out of their land to other land. So I'd like to know, what are you guys' thoughts on all of this militarization of the police and calling in the National Guard? What are they really trying to do here? And also, what are your thoughts on these natural disasters, whether we're talking Katrina or we're talking more recent disasters, and the potential of trying to grab land from citizens and making home ownership more of a thing out of reach for future generations, as well as what's happening with weather patterns rapidly changing, or anything else you want to talk about. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this short discussion. Take care. God bless. Until next time.